The deep space ship Virex 7 moved quietly through the stars. Inside its glass halls, scientists from many worlds worked side by side. This was not a warship. It was a place of knowledge. And for Kyle Mercer, a human engineer from Earth, it was supposed to be a fresh start. No fighting, no politics, just machines. Silence. Peace. He walked into the command lab holding a metal tablet. On it were the ship's energy readings. He liked to stay early, prepared, alone, but he wasn't alone today. Across the room stood Lysera, a tall, violet-skinned alien from the Zathari species. Her hair was white and braided back. Her eyes glowed softly, like blue fire under glass. She didn't talk much, never smiled, but she was always there, working right next to him. She moved like a soldier, but thought like a scientist, and she never, ever broke rules. Until today. Kyle sat at the console and began checking the calibration. Lysera stood at the opposite panel, her fingers dancing across the screen. The silence was calm. Familiar. Kyle chuckled softly. "You know, you remind me of someone," he said casually. Lysera stopped moving. "Back on Earth, I used to work with a girl named Lyra. She was quiet, too, always focused. You two could be sisters." Lysera slowly turned her head toward him. Her expression did not change, but something shifted. A flicker of light behind her eyes, a twitch in her fingers. Then, without warning, crash. Lysera slammed her fist into the control panel. Glass shattered. Sparks flew. The energy core reading flatlined. Alarms blared. Kyle jumped back. "What the hell?" Lysera didn't answer. Her chest rose and fell fast. Her eyes were locked on him. Not in anger, in something deeper, something wild. The room lights turned red. The emergency doors sealed behind them. Kyle backed up slowly, his voice low. "It was just a name, I didn't mean anything." Still, she said nothing. She stepped away from the panel and stood stiff, arms at her sides. Then, without a word, she walked out, leaving the broken panel and a shocked human behind. Minutes later, Kyle sat in the medical bay with a Zathari elder named Halkor, who stared at him with narrowed eyes. "You spoke her name, the other female," the elder said slowly. "Yes," Kyle replied. "I said she reminded me of someone from Earth, that's all." Halkor sighed deeply. "You do not understand. Zathari females. They bond silently. When one begins to form a connection, even a spoken name of another is considered a rejection." Kyle's eyes widened. "Wait, you're telling me she likes me?" "She chose you," the elder said. "And you just told her there is someone else." Kyle blinked. "But I didn't mean it like that." The elder's tone grew firm. "Meaning is not in the words, it is in the moment. And now, you must fix what you broke." Later that night, Kyle stood outside Lysera's chamber door. He didn't knock, he didn't say her name, but he stayed there, waiting. After 30 minutes, the door opened just a little. Her eyes looked at him, still glowing, still silent. "I didn't know," he said softly. "You have to understand him now, we don't bond the same way." She didn't reply, but she didn't close the door either. "If I had known, I wouldn't have said anything about Lyra. You're not like her." He paused. "You're more." A long silence. Then the door opened wider. Just enough for him to step inside. The broken panel was just the beginning, and Kyle knew it now. This mission wasn't just about science or machines. It was about learning a different kind of language. A language of silence, of meaning, of emotion buried under skin and bone. The room was dark, lit only by a soft, violet glow from the ceiling. Kyle sat across from Lysera, unsure if he should speak first. Her face showed no anger now, just cold control. She wasn't yelling. She wasn't smashing things. But somehow, this silence felt heavier than before. "I didn't know," Kyle said again. I didn't understand. Lysera's eyes finally met his. Humans speak of emotion easily, she said. We do not. When a Zathari female begins to bond, words become sacred. Jealousy is not weakness, it is truth. Kyle tried to process that. So, when I said Lyra's name, you thought I was choosing her over you? She didn't nod, she didn't blink, she just said, yes. That word hit harder than a punch. Kyle leaned back, hands on his knees. He had worked with aliens before, but never like this. Never with feelings involved. He looked at Lysera, her sharp features, glowing skin, and the quiet strength in her voice. She wasn't being dramatic. She was being honest. And in her world, honesty was war. Later that day, he was summoned to the Zathari Cultural Chamber, a small circular room filled with floating holograms of alien laws and traditions. Elder Halcor met him again. You must be taught the 3 rules, he said, before you break more hearts and panels. Kyle gave a small, guilty nod. Zathari bonding rules, as told to humans. A Zathari woman does not speak her feelings. She watches. She learns. When she chooses, it is silent, but deep. If a chosen partner speaks of another female during bonding phase, it is a wound to the bond. It is seen as a rejection. Zathari emotions react instantly, often violently. If the bond is broken by words, only action can restore it. No apology, no gift, only risk or sacrifice. Kyle read the rules again, then again. So what now? He asked. How do I show her that I didn't mean harm? Halcor looked at him seriously. You must give her something valuable. Not with credits, with your life. Later that night, Kyle returned to the lab, where Lysera was already repairing the damage she caused. He stepped beside her and said nothing. For a full hour, they worked together in silence. Then Kyle did something bold. He opened his wrist panel and deleted a message, a personal video log from Lyra, his old colleague on Earth, his last connection to the other woman. You didn't ask me to choose, he said, but I'm choosing anyway. Lysera stared at him. You destroyed something. For me. Kyle nodded. That's how humans bond too. We make mistakes, but when we care, we prove it. She stepped forward, slowly, not smiling, not speaking, but her fingers lightly touched his, a Zathari signal. Not romance, not sex, but something far more serious. Forgiveness. Just then, a voice shouted from the intercom. Power levels dropping in Sector 3, emergency override not responding. Kyle and Lysera snapped back into action. She looked at him once, one glowing glance, and said, Let's fix it, together. Emergency lockdown activated. Red lights flashed through the corridor as a thick metal door slammed shut behind Kyle and Lysera. What happened? Kyle asked, turning to the control pad. I thought we fixed this section. Lysera's fingers flew across the backup interface, her sharp eyes scanning fast. Something triggered a full sector isolation. Internal override won't respond. Kyle tried his wrist panel. No signal. No oxygen flow data. Just 2 blinking warnings. Power levels. Critical. Life support. 47 minutes. They were sealed inside. The plasma core room. A long, narrow chamber lined with humming fusion pipes and one broken vent leaking faint gas. No windows. No comms. And no escape. Kyle paced, wiping sweat from his neck. We've survived worse, he muttered. Just never in a room the size of a bathroom stall. Lysera stayed still, her eyes watching the gas leak and the blinking core unit. This was not a system error, she said quietly. What do you mean? She looked at him, calm, but her voice was cold. This was sabotage. Someone wanted us inside, alone. Kyle stopped. Why? Because some on this ship don't want a human and Zathari growing closer, she said. Your survival means breaking our silence. That scares them. Kyle blinked. So, They're trying to break the bond before it grows. She nodded once. By killing it inside this room. They worked together fast. Sweat rolled down Kyle's face as he twisted open side panels and rerouted circuits. Lysera held a scanner over the vent, trying to isolate the toxin. Breathing grew harder. Voices slowed. At 23 minutes left, Kyle collapsed against the wall. "We're not getting out, are we?" Lysera didn't answer. Instead, she pulled a small glowing crystal from her belt pouch and held it out to him. "Zathari Soulstone," she said. "It holds a fragment of memory, a moment of clarity. Use it before your mind begins to fade." Kyle took it. The moment he touched the crystal, his thoughts sharpened, but what he saw wasn't a battle or science. It was her, Lysera, in the training hall, alone, watching him from a distance, hiding her smile. The first time she felt something. For him. Kyle looked up at her, now sitting beside him. She spoke softly. "We do not say words like care, not easily. But if I die here, you should know, I would have chosen you again." He smiled, weak but sure. "Then let's not die." With only 11 minutes left, Kyle forced himself up. He crossed the room, ripped open a last emergency hatch, and hot steam blasted his arm. He screamed but didn't stop. Lysera joined him, grabbing a coolant rod barehanded, ignoring the burn. Together, they overloaded the vent pressure valve. The panel blinked green. Oxygen restored. Lockdown lifted. The door hissed open. Medical bots rushed in. Kyle collapsed. Lysera caught him before he hit the floor. As the bots checked his vitals, she whispered, in Zathari, too soft for machines to translate, "If you ever speak another female's name again, I'll save you. Then break your other arm." Kyle chuckled through the pain. Fair enough. The ship floated silently through deep space. But inside the council chamber, things were far from quiet. 3 alien figures in long robes stood around a glowing table. Their faces were hidden under hoods, but their eyes flickered like small stars. In the center of the room, a single image floated in the air. Kyle and Lysera, trapped inside the core room. Alive. Together. Still bonded. "He was supposed to break," one counselor whispered. "She was supposed to turn cold," said another. "Instead," the third growled, "they held on tighter." A long silence followed, then a decision. "If we cannot break their bond from outside, then we must break it from within." Later, Kyle sat alone in the observation bay, watching. Stars drift by. His arm was bandaged. His breath still came slow, but his mind was clear, for once, until a voice behind him broke the calm. "You shouldn't be here." He turned. A tall Zathari stood behind him. Not a soldier, not a friend. Counselor Drex. Cold eyes, long fingers, and a tone like poison wrapped in politeness. "You think you've won her," Drex said, "but Lysera is not yours." Kyle stood slowly. "I didn't claim her, she chose me." Drex stepped closer. "A mistake. One that can still be corrected." Kyle clenched his fists. "Why do you even care?" Drex smiled. "Because her bond with you changes everything. If a Zathari warrior can give her loyalty to a human, what happens to our traditions? Our control?" Kyle stayed silent. He didn't have answers for politics. He only knew what he felt. Drex leaned in. "There is still time to walk away. If you don't, she will be forced to choose between her duty and her feelings. And when that happens, it's not you they'll remove from this ship. It's her." The threat hung in the air like smoke. Then Drex was gone. But the fear remained. Kyle met Lysera in the training hall later that night. She moved fast and hard, striking targets with fury. He watched quietly until she stopped. "They're coming for you," he said. She turned. "I know. They said they'll take you off the ship if you don't break the bond." Her voice was steady, but her hand trembled slightly. "Then I will leave." Kyle stepped forward. No, I'll reject the bond if it means protecting you. Now, her voice changed, hard, angry, afraid. Don't speak for me. You're not protecting me by leaving. You're insulting me. She turned away, but Kyle stepped close, his hand brushing hers. Then what do we do? She looked at him, eyes glowing, wide with emotion. We stay visible. We make them see that our bond isn't weakness. It's resistance. At that moment, a public message flashed across the ship's communication. Screen, crew of Virex 7. Tomorrow the Council will call a public trial of intention. All eyes will witness the outcome. If human Kyle Mercer and warrior Lysera continue their unlawful bond, punishment will be declared. Kyle looked at her. She nodded once. No fear in her voice now. Then we show them who we really are. The trial chamber was full. Zathari counselors lined the walls in silence. Officers from different planets watched from the glass balcony above. At the center, Kyle stood beside Lysera, his head high but his palms sweating. He wasn't afraid to face judgment. He was afraid of how far they'd go to silence the truth. A high-ranking voice called out, "Do you confirm your emotional bond with this Zathari warrior?" Kyle spoke clearly. "Yes." "Do you understand this bond threatens diplomatic order between species?" "I don't care about order if it means denying what's real." Gasps filled the hall, but Lysera didn't flinch. She stepped forward, her voice calm. "I chose him, not because of his species, because of his loyalty. If that threatens your system, then your system is weak." Suddenly, boom! The floor rumbled. Emergency lights flashed red. Alarms screamed. A message flashed on every screen. "Core breach. Engine room 2. Energy cells detonated, counselors shouted. Panic broke out. A soldier ran in. "We've located the saboteur's signal trace. Sector 4. It's them." He pointed straight at Kyle and Lysera. Kyle froze. "What? We were here the whole time." But no one was listening. Orders were shouted. Security bots moved in. "By command of emergency law," barked a council member, "you are both to be taken into custody immediately." Lysera grabbed Kyle's hand. "Run!" They dashed through the side corridor as plasma bolts hit the wall behind them. Kyle's heart pounded. "Where are we going?" "Out of the official deck, into the dark sector, no cameras." "Isn't that where the prisoners are kept?" Exactly. They passed into an abandoned level of the ship, where the lights flickered and dust floated in still air. Lysera slammed a hidden panel revealing an old maintenance tunnel. They crawled inside just before a drone passed by. Minutes later, they reached a forgotten comm station. Kyle tapped into a locked channel. The screen flickered, and a familiar face appeared. Counselor Drex. Kyle's eyes narrowed. "You sent the false trace." Drex smirked. "Unnecessary act. The bond had to end one way or another. You chose war, so now you'll be treated like an enemy. Run, human. Let the galaxy see what you really are." The screen went dark. Kyle slumped back, his hands shaking. Lysera crouched beside him. "They won't stop until one of us is gone. Then let's not give them what they want." She placed something in his hand, a small glowing shard. "A data key," she said. "It holds surveillance footage. Proof we didn't plant the explosives." Kyle looked at her in awe. "You stole this from the trial system?" "Borrowed," she said with a faint smirk. "Now we just need to survive long enough to broadcast it." Outside, the hunt had begun. All over the ship, lights flashed, doors locked, posters went up on digital walls. Wanted, human Kyle Mercer, and Zathari warrior, Lysera, dangerous, disloyal, armed. But inside the dark, they weren't just running, they were planning. And their bond, once questioned, was now the only weapon they could trust. They hid inside Module Z9, deep in the ship's abandoned science bay. The walls were dusty. Lights flickered. It used to be a bio-research lab. Now it was quiet, forgotten. But Lysera remembered it well. This is where they tested fear gas on captured creatures, she whispered. Zathari tech, mixed with alien mind chemicals. Kyle coughed, wiping sweat from his forehead. They had been running for hours. Are you saying this place is dangerous? Lysra looked at him. Yes, but it's also the only room left we can use. She opened a steel door labeled Chamber 7, Virelian toxin testing inside. A sealed dome, dark, empty, except for a glowing chair. What is this? Kyle asked. It's a loyalty chamber, Lysra replied, built to test if a subject truly aligns with their claimed bond partner. But humans have never survived it. Kyle stared at her. And you want me to go inside? No, she said quietly. You're choosing to. The data key. I gave you. Drex will say it's fake, but if you survive this, the chamber will confirm your loyalty in front of the ship's ancient system. Kyle took a breath. He looked at the cold chair. He nodded. Let's prove it. He sat down. Lysra activated the chamber. The glass dome slid down. Fog hissed from the vents. Then came the whispering. Not real voices. Visions. Memories. Doubts. You barely know her. She's not human. She'll leave you when this is over. You're alone. You've always been alone. Inside, Kyle clutched the arms of the chair. He saw Earth. He saw Lyra. He saw the past he thought he left behind. And in the middle of the storm, he saw Lysra. Smiling, laughing, bleeding. For him, sitting beside him in silence, the dome's energy spiked. Outside, Lysra saw red warnings appear. Subject heart rate, dangerous mental pressure, unstable. Her hand hovered over the emergency cancel, but she didn't press it. Instead, she whispered to the chamber, Don't give up, Kyle. I'm here. Inside, Kyle heard her voice, not through speakers, through the bond. His mind slowed, the voices faded, his hand unclenched. And finally, the dome turned green. Lysra rushed in. Kyle collapsed forward into her arms. His breathing was weak, but steady. She held him tightly. Not like a warrior, not like a partner, like someone afraid to lose what they'd never thought they could have. Kyle whispered, That was the worst date I've ever been on. Lysra blinked, then laughed, a real laugh, light and sharp and beautiful. Then don't take me to toxin chambers next time. A signal pinged on her wrist panel. The chamber had auto-sent its reading to the ship's mainframe. Result, loyalty. Confirmed. Mental bond level. High. For the first time, they weren't just running. They had proof. But as the chamber lights faded, Lysra's smile slowly disappeared. Now they know your heart belongs to me. Which means they'll try. Harder to crush it. The ship was no longer quiet. Sirens echoed across every hall. Patrol bots marched, doors locked, and two fugitives, Kyle Mercer and Lysra, ran through the fire line with one final mission. Reach the central tower, upload the truth, show the galaxy what they tried to erase. Inside Kyle's hand was the small crystal, the data key and the chamber results, his proof of loyalty, her proof of trust. In Lysra's other hand, a plasma pistol set to overload. If we fail, she said, we blow the tower. We don't let them bury this. Then we don't fail, Kyle said simply. They reached the outer wall of the tower, and standing in front of the blast door, Counselor Drex. He looked calm, sharp, cold. You survived the toxin chamber, Drex said. But survival doesn't mean permission. You're afraid of us, Kyle said. Of what it means that someone like her chose someone like me. Drex smirked. What scares me is that the galaxy might believe your story. That a human and a Zathari could ever stand equal. Lysra raised her weapon. We don't need them to believe. We just need them to see. The fight was quick, brutal. Drex's guards moved in, but Lysra was faster. One shot, two falls, a high kick to the chest. Kyle tackled a soldier twice his size, stole his access badge, and smashed it into the eye. Panel, door open. Countdown started. Inside the tower, glowing walls, control screens, and a master terminal linked to every ship in the Zathari fleet. Kyle slammed the key in. Uploading now. The lights dimmed. A screen lit up, showing Lysera saving Kyle. Kyle in the toxin chair. The loyalty score. Maximum bond. Then one more clip played, automatically. Lysera, whispering to the toxin chamber. Don't give up. Kyle, I'm here. Millions across the fleet heard it. Warriors, officers, even children. Not orders, not speeches. Just one quiet voice, speaking truth. Drex screamed and charged, but before he reached the console, Kyle hit one final command. Send. The truth went everywhere. Hours later, the Virex 7 was silent again. The council had been removed. The fleet called for reform, and Kyle stood beside Lysera, watching the stars drift by. No more hiding, no more lies. She touched his hand. No words. Just bond. Just breath. Was it worth it? She asked softly. Every broken rule, he said, was a step closer to you. They stood in silence. Together. Two beings from different worlds. One bond no system could erase.